EWTNnews.com. Take Two with Jerry and Debbie starts now.
Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. This is where we take a fresh look at ourselves and the world around us. We introduce topics, you weigh in by picking up the phone and calling us, and it is just a wonderful conversation like we're having in our virtual living room over a cold, nice cool drink or a cup of coffee, something of that nature. So, Jerry, I'm excited because I think we're going to have a lot of participation on this topic, but I'm not excited because the actual topic itself kind of bums me out. I have to be honest with you. So take it away.
Well, take it away. How do you think we're treating our aging population? That is the question here on the program today. Our elderly. Do you have elderly parents, maybe grandparents, loved ones? Maybe you are an elderly person and you are concerned maybe a little bit about the way respect for our elderly has diminished, if not disappeared in many cases. So feel free to weigh in on this topic today. 833-288-3986. We have phone lines that are wide open right now. And Debbie, it's going to be, I think, a very deep, but also very impactful conversation.
Yeah, I agree. It's taken me a year and a half to finally voice what I would like to share, Jerry, if I may, about my mom. And a lot of folks from the Take Two family have been praying for my mom. Her name is Connie. She's 88 years old. She's absolutely adorable, just a saintly woman, amazing. She's the one who I talk about who has a brother who was a priest. He has passed on, and a sister who's still alive in her 90s, a Dominican sister in New Jersey. And my mom always wanted to be a nun, but she had 6 kids instead, and that's why we're all here. But you know, Jerry, it's taken me a long time to really be able to speak about this without getting very much emotional, but also very, very. How do I say it without how do I say it kindly? I'm enraged about it, what happened to my mom. So, and that's what prompted this topic, respecting the elderly. You know, the elderly has just a wealth of wisdom and knowledge and experience. They can teach us so much. And yet when they get into their late 70s or 80s and their health maybe starts to decline, what happens? You know, do we take them into our home? Are we able to do that? Maybe because we live far apart. You know, it's not like it was in the old days where everybody kind of stayed in the same town. So now we have these assisted living and memory care places popping up like popsicle stands all over the country. And it's a huge moneymaker. Is that the solution? Are our parents really being taken care of well and respected at these places? I don't know. Let's talk about it. 833-288-3986. Did your mom ever go to one of these places?
She did, yeah. My mom ended the last few years of her life in an assisted living facility, and I'm very, very happy to say it was very close to my sister and my brother-in-law and their 2 sons, and they went to see her all the time. And whenever I was in town, I lived 1,200 miles away, but when I was in town, I would visit her frequently. So we were always there for her because we felt that was important. However, I'm just devastated to say, Debbie, kind of along the lines that you're talking about, when we would go to see her, you would pass in the hallways past all of these people, many of them, in wheelchairs with just sad, lonely looks on their faces. And we would talk to my mom and she would say, well, so-and-so never has any visitors and nobody comes to see this person and that person. Yep. And you know what? We have our lives. Okay, this isn't a condemnation of anybody, but, we cannot lose the reality of how the worth not only to themselves that the elderly have, but the worth to us. It used to be where the wisdom and the love and the care and the experiences would be passed down to children and grandchildren. Now it's almost like they're disposable commodity because we live in this utilitarian society. It's often, Debbie, their usefulness is what they're gauged upon, and that usefulness translates into can they still contribute to the financial well-being of the republic, so to speak. I don't know. So I know you've got, like you said, you've got some strong feelings about this, and we know that our listeners are going to weigh in on this. So why don't you give them that phone number out again? And I know you have some other things you want to share.
It's 1-833-288-3986. And we also want to make this kind of a two-part show, if you will, in one show, and that is to also honor and to praise all the caregivers, the nursing staff, the medical staff, all of you guys who step up and you really do your best with good intentions, and you have great hearts, and you want to take care of the elderly, and you respect the elderly, and you understand what it means to be a part of that ministry, because it's a ministry work. Okay, if I may share, now I only have a few minutes before we hit that pause button, so it's probably a good thing so I don't get too emotional. Last year, my beautiful saintly mother, we moved her into a brand new, beautiful, posh facility that she was very much enjoying. And she was in a beautiful apartment. She was socializing. She was having fun, and she was doing all sorts of games and bingo. She loved winning at bingo, and it was just fun to watch her smile all the time and laugh. Unfortunately, the place that we put her in started taking in residents that they were not equipped to handle, and they put one next to my mother's apartment. And unfortunately, last year in the middle of the night, we the family believes that it was not done by any caregivers. The reason being is because this particular gentleman who lived next door, was in there for violent issues that he had done with his wife. He had an illness like dementia or Lewy bodies or something of that nature. Anyway, long story short, he had actually attacked me the day before. Okay, verbally. He attacked me the day before verbally. So that night, apparently, the caregivers must have left my mother's door unlocked, because my mother always used to lock her door. So that's a neglect on their part. They should have locked her apartment door. And we believe that she was attacked in the middle of the night, and she was left with 4 blunt force traumas to the face, and she almost died. It was horrific. And the sad part about it is nobody would accept accountability. And they tried to blame it on herself, which was so idiotic, because we had forensic psychologists and a forensic doctor, and everybody weigh in immediately, and it wasn't done to herself. It was absolutely horrible. But here's the bad part about it, Jerry, that makes it even worse. My mother had to go through a lot to get back to quote unquote, normal, her normal, right? But the guilt that all of us felt, here, this was my beautiful saintly mother had to endure that in the middle of the night, being woken up by her in her sleep. That's not a way to treat the elderly.
Right.
It's just sad.
Well, yeah, and I followed it closely through you and Marty, both of you and your family doing such a great job. So let's talk about this, and we can talk about the good side of respecting the elderly as well. Maybe you show great honor and respect and are taking care of an elderly person. That's an important conversation we're having. Here's the number. It's 833-288-3986.
As a Catholic talk show host and speaker and author, I'm often asked, how should we pray? How do we pray? Really? It's up to you, and that's between you and the Lord. We have wonderful, wonderful formalized prayers in the Catholic faith, such as a rosary, the Lord's Prayer, novenas, but you can also just open up your heart and say, Lord, help, SOS. It's as simple as that. How you pray is really up to you. Ask the Lord how you should pray, and He'll answer you.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
We've started doing these shows. Call in if you're an atheist. Call in if you want to redefine marriage. Those are the kind of shows that make very engaging radio. We're going to continue to try to reach out to the fringes and find those people who fundamentally disagree with us. And we're going to continue to create shows that are going to reach out to those people to draw them in to the fullness of the truth.
Catholic Answers Live, tonight, 6 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
I said to the sisters one day, what do you think you're going to look like in heaven? Oh, some of them had absolutely magnificent ideas. I didn't think of one of them. And so I got desperate, because then my turn came. I didn't know what to say. And so in desperation, I said, what do you think I'll wear in heaven? And they all said with one voice, armor!
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
here Monday through Friday at noon Eastern Time with a replay at midnight Eastern and a best of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie Saturdays at noon Eastern Time. We've got our producer Rich Jesse, our social media guy Jeff Burson, Ryan Penny is on the phones, and thanks to the affiliates for carrying the program. And, you know, we all want to read good books. It's important to feed our minds as well as our souls. Sometimes, you know, there are millions of books out there. Which one do you pick up and read? Well, you can get great suggestions every week from Doug Keck. He is EWTN's Bookmark host, and you will find his program, EWTN Bookmark, at 4:30 Eastern Time on Saturday afternoon. So if you've got a little bit of time there, great suggestions for books that you might want to pick up and read. It's Bookmark with Doug Keck on most of these EWTN stations, Saturdays at 4:30.
And before we get to the phones, we do have one open phone line. Please weigh in on this. Do you think we're treating the elderly, how do you think we're treating the elderly nowadays? Let's talk about it. 833-288-3986. And I just want to say, Jerry, because I'm receiving some text messages, this situation with my mom is still working its way through it and playing out, obviously, in the court system. But these allegations, I'm sure, will I believe will be affirmed because it's so obvious. But most folks ask me this, Deb, if you had to do it again, would you have put her in a facility like that? I mean, it's brand new. You know, there's all these bells and whistles when you enter these places, and that's why I wanted to state that they're going up very quickly, and they are huge money makers for whatever person that is backing this. Just please make sure they're not understaffed. Please make sure what type of people they are bringing in that's going to be suitable for your loved one. And I would recommend to everybody, please, if you can, get a camera or a nanny cam in your parents' apartment, and also make sure there's surveillance cameras outside the building and inside the hallways. Very important. That's what I would have done differently, and it would have helped and protected my sweet, sweet mother. So, you know, but you learn maybe, and if I could help others, then maybe it was, you know, somehow worth it. I don't know. I don't see how, but...
Well, we're going to hear from our listeners because we have stacked phone lines here now. So if you're trying to get through, wait until the line is free. And please do join us. You always have something, Take Two family. You always drive the show, and you really have important things to say at 833-288-3986. So we'll start in the order that you called. That means Sally is first in Charleston, South Carolina, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Sally. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Sure.
I just jumped in the car to go to the grocery store and turned on your show, and what a day to do that. I lost my sweet mother on July 24th this summer. She was 3 weeks shy of being 90 years old. She had been in a nursing home for a number of years. Went in with a lot of physical problems, but within a few years had some strokes, developed dementia, and just gradually declined. And I just wanted to say, one of the things that I saw that was important to my mother, especially in her first 2.5, 3 years when she was still pretty cognizant of what was happening in her life, they need to feel valued as contributing citizens and not like little children that are being cared for. Even though they need to be cared for and watched like a child in some ways, they need valued. And my mother graduated from nursing school in the late 1940s. She was a registered nurse. And one of the first things she did when she got in there, she would tell the aides when they would come in, this is not how you make a bed. This is not how you give a patient bath. This is not how you comb their hair. And she would redirect them and retrain them. And it kind of tickled the nursing home staff in a way that Mom was in there teaching. And a couple of years after she'd been in there, I ran into 3 ladies that had worked there at one time that had come back to see her. They had been certified nursing assistants when they went in, but Mom had inspired them to go to nursing school. And they went and received their LPN degrees. And so, you know, I was able to say to Mom, look what you're doing in here. Look how important it is. You're helping people. You're teaching. And it did give her something to hold on to be a part of. And she served on little councils that were at the home to advise. As long as she was capable, she contributed. And we had to continually praise her for that because she needed to hear that. I will tell you that the day she passed away, the staff that worked there streamed in, hugging her, touching her, saying their goodbyes to her. Was it perfect? No. I would say that if you do have a family member, you do need to watch over them closely. I saw a lot of elderly in that nursing home that had no one to come see them, that just needed touched and needed hugged, needed smiled at, hello. It's just something all of us can do. And a lot of people are afraid to go in nursing homes because it's not always pleasant. It is what it is. But anyway, it's not the worst thing, but I do agree with Debbie. I do think you have to be diligent as a family member and watch over your family. But I just wanted to contribute that.
Sally, thank you so much. You shared about your beautiful mom. We're sorry that she left you on July 24th. You said, but she's closer to you now than ever. So that's the good news. That's what you can hold on to. Can we celebrate her as well and put her in the book with her name, her first name?
Oh, I would love that. Yes, you will never forget her first name because it is Mary.
Okay. She's got a great name. That's awesome. But Sally, thank you so much for sharing, because it's interesting that you talked about your mom having a nursing background, and so she shared that on a regular basis. I did a similar thing. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she was the mom of 6 kids. And so I would always go into the staff and I'd say, now remember something, she handled a big household. She managed a big household. There was 6 of us and my dad. Okay. So, and I wanted them to know that, because as I used to walk around the assisted living place, and there's some beautiful stories I can share. It's unfortunate that it ended the way it did with our family situation.
Exactly.
But Sally, I'll tell you, it's interesting. I used to walk around all the time, and I saw my mom every single day, sometimes twice a day, and because she was only a mile down the road from my house. And so I would walk in and I would say to each person, so John, tell me what you did when you were working. And I found out there was lawyers and doctors and surgeons and teachers and nurses. I mean, pretty amazing. And I'm thinking, man, you have a whole, encyclopedia right here, a whole library here of wealth of knowledge, and nobody was really tapping into it. Did you find that, Sally?
Yes, I did. And I'll tell you what I have done with what I learned having mom in a nursing home. I have at my church gotten involved with our nursing home ministry and we go in twice a month and do a communion service with the deacon, and then another time we do full mass. And then we have other volunteers who go every week and take communion. And we do, we get the priests in there if they're really, really close to, and need last rites. We get them in there. So it's been, for me, having mom there, I grew from it as well, and I feel that it's just a part of our society that could be a lost society, and we cannot let it go. They know so much.
Absolutely.
They do.
Amen.
They do. The wisdom that has been passed down over the years, that's among the many ways the elderly still have incredible worth and dignity. And I believe that might be one of the reasons that so many of our younger people, younger generations, maybe have a hard time fitting in today's world, a lack of a kind of a vital frame of reference to use as a starting point. Their history. Who are they? Where have they come from? How do they fit in? Where are they going? All of these things, Debbie, are passed on so often by our parents and grandparents, and these things in too many cases are often missing. So great call, Sally. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely pray for Mary, your mother. We definitely appreciate your call.
Well, we'll always remember her.
That's right. That was my sister's name, too, so I will absolutely remember that. Well, we got a lot of calls here. I just want to mention that we had an anonymous email that says this: I can promise that most facilities do not honor our elders. I was a director of nursing at a large assisted living facility years ago. Within a few months, I found a lack of staffing, falsified information on patients' charts, and a desire to hide it all from the state. They pressured me to continue this practice, but I refused. I was put on leave and investigated by the state. I was exonerated, but I quit the position because of what I saw. So that is a personal example from one of our many listeners.
Well, I just want to validate what that wonderful emailer just said, and because I've heard that story quite a few times in my mother's situation. So my heart breaks for them that they had to go through that. It's horrible because people go into this profession, Jerry, wanting to help other human beings, wanting to care for just beautiful people until they leave this earth. And it's unfortunate that there's all these pressures. And it's, you know what, Jerry? Who used to say it all the time? There's a Catholic speaker on the radio that says it all the time. Follow the money. Follow the money. It boils down to that. It's very unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is unfortunate, especially, like you said, so many people. In fact, I would say the vast majority of the caregivers and staff and so forth, they really want to do their best. They want to really honor these people, and sometimes that is made a little bit difficult for them. Okay, hang on the line. If you're on there, be patient. Nancy is in Cleveland listening on The Rock to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Hi, Nancy. You are next. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I just wanted to tell you that I've been a hospice volunteer for about 4 years now, and I do nothing but go into situations to give respite to the families. But what I wanted to point out is that people don't realize that hospice can be used in a nursing home. There's different levels of hospice. There's navigator, then there's full hospice. And sometimes the nursing homes do not like it because then there's added eyes on their patient. And they do everything from coming in to spiritual needs to just watching their medicines, comfort level of getting them mattresses if they need them. And like I said, sometimes the homes don't like it because it kind of interferes with their minute-to-minute schedule. But it's just an amazing program. And I don't think I think they think that it's mostly for people that are dying at home. But my service is to go into the nursing homes as a volunteer.
Well, Nancy, I just
wanted to share that.
Yeah, Nancy, thank you for sharing that because I didn't understand that either about hospice. Because when you hear hospice, you think death, right? That's what you associate it with.
Yes.
But there's so many more services that hospice can offer, and they do it quite well, like your particular ministry that you're in. And I just want to say thank you, Nancy, for being another set of eyes at these facilities. It's important. The more we have people going in there, the better off all of our elderly will be. That's why I purposely went in twice a day, and then my husband went in, and my sister went in, and friends went in, because the more eyes that are there can only keep it kind of in checks and balances, right? It kind of keeps it on check. What do you think about that, Nancy? Is it wise for us to constantly send people in?
Oh my gosh. You have to. And like I said, the hospice can actually be a money saver, too, because they will, take over the case. And the only requirement is that the person is terminal. But terminal doesn't necessarily mean tomorrow, a week, a month. It could be a year. It could be 2 years. It's just that's the state they're in. And it's so, especially with the Alzheimer's patients, they can give a different viewpoint of what they see, and also, when you walk into a nursing home and you have the badge on, the hospice badge, you look professional and you look like you belong there. So sometimes things go on that they just let fly because they think you're part of the staff. And so you see a lot more. And you're able to deal with that. But I'll let you go, but there's a program called Navigator. It's the first step in hospice, and it's basically just an overseer, and it gives your patients the ability to get another bath during the week, to have spiritual care, to have a massage, to have pet therapy, and it's free. So
wow.
You got to take advantage of it.
Well, Nancy, you sound like you do it with...
That's all I wanted to share today.
Thank you so much for what you do. I echo what Debbie said. You sound like you do it with great joy as well. You are cut out for this. You're called by God to do this. And, you pointed out that hospice doesn't necessarily mean immediate end of life. I remember during my seminary formation years when I was a seminarian, one of the summers I did what's called clinical pastoral education. It's an 8-week course of hospital chaplaincy training. And I worked on an oncology wing, and also, therefore, I was involved in some hospice situations. And this was 25 years ago. And Debbie, I remember that exactly what she said. I learned to believe that hospice meant, okay, they're really literally at the end of life. This is going to be at the day or 2 or 3 or whatever.
Right.
And Nancy's pointed out something important to us right here, that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing nowadays. So for people to be able to do what she does and all the things that she just mentioned there, I love she mentioned pet therapy as well. All of these things just to bring up the quality of life of the people who may know that they're dying slowly. It could be, like you said, a year or 2. It could be a month. But just to validate them and give them those special gifts toward the end of their life, I think is so important.
Absolutely. The more you can do to just make their life special each and every day, it's so very important. And I call it a ministry work, Jerry. It's ministry. It's being Christ to each other, and it's a really beautiful thing when it's done the right way. Can you share Karen's email? This is very important that just came in. Karen, about her
Karen,
family.
thanks for listening just about every day, I think, and you email us regularly. She says, my mom died December 31st, 2014. When she was in the hospital, she had trouble sleeping. Long story made much shorter. My dad was concerned about my mom getting hooked on sleeping pills, and he mentioned this to the medical people involved. He was told by one of the medical personnel that it didn't matter if my mom got hooked on these pills because of her age. She was 70. It's a cultural thing that's permeating the air, lack of value for the elderly. Karen says that, and I've said this, I think, on this program before, Debbie. My mom died a drug addict in the assisted living facility, and I don't mean heroin, cocaine, and meth and all this stuff. I just mean, and this is maybe she needed these medications. I don't know, but she had something, for anxiety, and then there was a side effect, so they gave her something with that side effect, and then something to sleep, and that had side effect. I think she was taking 12 to 15 medications a day toward the end of her life. Yeah,
and she was tiny. She wasn't big.
Yeah. She died at 92. So 90 also, I should say. Yeah.
Okay, let's take 2 with Jerry and Debbie. We want to hear more from you when we come back.
Al Cresta.
The secular press just doesn't get our story. They don't even understand it. And so it's incumbent upon us to get the story straight and get the story out.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
Bishop Robert Barron.
When you say, well, my ego is the center of my life, my freedom. Okay, it sounds great. What I can envision, what I can desire in the immediacy of the moment. I mean, what a dull prospect. But to say that God's purposes are now my purposes, well, that opens up, as Paul says in Ephesians, this power already at work in me that can do infinitely more than I can ask or imagine. Or the Lord saying to Peter, when you were a young man, you tied your own belt and went where you wanted to go. That's what young people do. But don't get stuck there, because then the Lord says, well, you're an old man. Someone else will tie you up and take you where you don't want to go. Well, that's the Holy Spirit. So don't read that as something terrible. That's liberating. That's wonderful. Some greater power will tie you up and take you maybe where you never imagined you'd go. When you get beyond that little narrow space of your own ego and you're opened up now into the great space. That's what happens when Jesus becomes Lord. Now you're living.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
We know you like listening to Take 2 with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio, but have you thought about bringing them to your next event? No matter what type of event you're hosting, parish mission, conference, or retreat, trust Jerry and Debbie to make it come alive. Begin the process today of taking your presentation to the next level of success. For information on booking Jerry and Debbie, visit take2show.com, click on the J&D logo.
I'm Gloria Purvis.
I'm Monsignor Charles Pope. The Morning Glory team talks about America's changing values.
Tomorrow morning, 7 Eastern. Now back to Take 2 with
This is Take 2 with Jerry and Debbie. We're talking about respecting our elderly today, and I just wanted to say thank you to Mary Beth, who sent a beautiful text message in to me. She's sending me hugs through text messaging, and she said, quote, "You don't get what you expect unless you inspect. And inspect you did." She says, "You've done well by your sweet mother. She's blessed to have you. Thank you, Mary Beth." But then I wrote back to her, see, we're very transparent here. I said, thank you. I said, I still suffer with great guilt because I felt like I couldn't protect her in the middle of the night. And it's a tough place. And I know I share that with a lot of other caregivers that just feel like they want to be there all the time, but you can't, and it's tough.
Well, and that brings up another question for you, Deb, if you don't mind, before we go back to the calls. You had to make that decision, that very hard decision, I'm sure, to put your mother in an assisted living facility, and we did with our mom as well. She lived with my sister for many years until she fell. I mean, she fell backwards one time down several stairs. And so, it just gets to the point where you can't do it. So many people are in this position, Debbie. So talk about just real quickly that dynamic of getting to that point where you go, this isn't really what I want to do, but you hope it's going to be in her best interest. That's what you were hoping.
Absolutely. I picked it. I interviewed, oh God, Jerry, you know me. I interviewed so many places, too many to count. And I picked the brand new, beautiful facility that was 1 mile, door to door, 1 mile from my home. My mother started out living with me and Marty. She started out with us and she was bored. She wanted to socialize. She didn't always want to, just kind of follow me around. She wanted a little bit more. So I thought this would be the best of both worlds. I'll put her a mile away from me. I can see her many times a day. We'll go out, we'll have lunch, we'll do everything. It was literally perfect. And on the surface. And everybody told me that their parents really thrived when they had all these social activities. So I wanted her to thrive, right? I wanted her to thrive. So I thought I was doing a great thing, and it started off fairly well. And then it went south from there. It was horrible. And it was, but now she's at a private home that they specialize. They're women, just 7 women in this home. And it's like a little convent. And that's what she's always wanted. So anyway, and my mother suffers from dementia, so I needed to add that as well. That was another factor. She needed specialized care as well, and I wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring that up just because, like yourself, like my sister and her husband, like so many of you who are listening, you may have had to face that decision, and maybe you feel guilty because you have to kind of hand off a parent or a grandparent, but sometimes that's just the reality of the way it is, and we have no doubt that you go way out of your way to make sure that the care is good and that they're visited and really felt shown to be respected and so forth. So let's go back to your calls on this important topic. Bob in Brookville, Maryland, he has us on Guadalupe Radio Network, listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Hi, Bob. Thanks for your call.
Hey, Jerry. Hey, Debbie. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I take communion to a local nursing home from our parish, and I think we support about 5 or 6 of these places out of our parish. So, first of all, it's just an incredible gift to do that, and it's also just so gratifying when so many of the residents just are really appreciative and thankful that you're bringing the Lord to them. So that's an amazing experience. But over time, you really get to know these people and love them. You almost feel like they're part of your family. But you do, as you said, you do see a lot of sad situations where people are very lonely. I always love it when I see family members there and get to meet them. But you run into odd situations. I mean, I had a lady the other day tell me that somebody stole the cross off her rosary, and it's like, what do you do about that? Or another lady was saying they didn't give her the medication she was supposed to have. So I said, do you want me to look into it? And she said, yeah. And so I went and talked to the staff. They convinced me that she had got it, and, she just didn't remember. So you run into these awkward things. You really sometimes don't know what to do, but it's tough.
It is. Well, if I can just go first here real quick,
yeah, because
Bob.
You do this.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to commend you, Bob, and everybody else who takes communion to, whether it's nursing homes. I do it on Today is My Day, Thursday. I go to a local hospital after I get off the radio program, and I take communion to those who want it. I visit the Catholic patients. And unlike you, Bob, though, I typically don't see people more than once, but I do see the long faces sometimes and the loneliness and the fear. You can see the fear in their eyes. But I'm also edified, too, by the fact that sometimes they'll be just surrounded by family. And that just lifts my spirit so much, Bob and Debbie, is to see when people do have family, loved ones that are there. And I remember, when my sister, if I can add, when my sister was in the hospital, she did not spend one night alone. She was in the hospital for about 2 months before she went home to pass away. And it was my brother-in-law or one of her sons or another one of us. Somebody spent the night with her every day. So God bless you, Bob, for what you're doing. Wow. This is such an important outreach.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo that, Bob. Thank you. It is an outreach. It's such a great ministry. You're with them, and I can relate, that you feel helpless when these wonderful folks ask you, for immediate assistance, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I don't work here. I don't know where to begin. I don't know how to do this. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to make people upset. It's very, very frustrating. I got to the point, Bob, where when they saw me coming, the nurses always said, okay, what's up, Deb? What's going on? They knew I was going to say something because I said, why not? If I'll be their mouthpiece. I'll be their advocate. So have you gotten to that point too, Bob, where you're just like, okay, I'm just going to go for it?
Well, I mean, I have not taken there haven't been that many serious situations. I think if something really serious came up, I certainly would, but a lot of it is sort of a middle, hard to know how to make the call. And I've actually tried to reach out to the lady that has the ministry to say, it'd be nice to have a meeting with the heads of facilities, to ask them, what do you want of us? I mean, I don't want to be looked as the cops coming in and blowing the whistle on things that don't look right to me when I'm only there, 4 Sundays. I rotate with 2 other people, so I'm there every third month. I'm in there for, an hour and a half or a week. So it's hard to get a complete picture when you get a little snapshot like that. So, I try not to draw conclusions or overreact to things, but you do things that you do hear or see that are troubling, and it's hard to know what to do.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you went, once a week. I was there once a day and twice a day. So for me, they did kind of see me as the cops coming in and saying things.
You had a better sample size. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? Everybody was respectful. They respected me because I would just say, hey guys, this didn't happen yesterday. It's happening today. Oh, okay, Deb. They'd say. So I ended up, becoming very friendly with the staff, which was wonderful. And they were a great staff for the most part. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Bob. God bless you. Thank you for doing that great work.
Well, thank you. God bless you, too.
God bless you. Oh, thank you, Bob. Thanks for being a part of it. You and the listeners make the show what it is. I want to mention Jean emailed in. She says, Jerry and Debbie just need to caution on being too overly zealous on hospice, as there is lots of money in hospice now also, and it has led to much elder abuse and many issues. I ran into issues myself with my elderly aunt in an assisted living in Maryland where they wanted to push her into hospice based purely on her age, 96, when she had no terminal health conditions. We had to fight the assisted living facility every step of the way to try to protect her. So a good little heads up and contribution to the conversation by Jean. Thank you very much.
Well, like we said at the beginning of the show, follow the money. It's unfortunate. That's what this has become in this world. It's a money driven, and it's very sad because we're losing our souls over it, and we're hurting other souls. Right, Jerry? It's tragic.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we got to see what more of you have to say here on this topic of how we're treating the elderly on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. 833-2883-986 if you'd like to join us. And John is going to be on next, listening on Guadalupe Radio Network in Dodge City, Kansas. Hi, John. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Better now that you called, John.
Thank you. My concern about being, I'm older, and it's not so much about people that are in nursing homes that concerns me. It's how parishes, I don't feel that some parishes don't have a ministry that ministers to seniors. Sure, they send people out for like communion once a week, that kind of thing, people that can't get out of the house. But ministry, like you have youth ministry, you have ministry for young adults, 18 to 36. But when you get, like over 50 or over 60 or whatever, you kind of feel like they either got you or they don't. And I don't see that in parishes, there's not a push to minister to these people in a way that offers them things other than Mass on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe communion outreach, like we were talking about with Bob and the others a little bit earlier in the program. I just wonder, here's a question I'll put back to you, John, and maybe Debbie, you have experience with this as well. Maybe the parishes just kind of assume that the families have this covered and are really following up and providing this visitation ministry and the companionship and the care and the love and all of that, whereas, as we've heard here on the conversation so far, Debbie, a lot of times that's not the case. But maybe the parishes are assuming that that's being done.
Well, yeah. Well, and John, I would agree with that. When they set up the system at the parishes, this, at least the several parishes that I worked at for many years, and there's the budgets and everything for different ministries, and there's a lot of factors that play in with the if there's an elderly ministry. I mean, I know there's a lot of meals programs, and then of course they have like the funeral ministry when that stage comes and stuff like that. But when it comes for active ministry, it falls under adult faith formation sometimes, and a lot of our senior population attends adult formation. Where the problem comes into play is they worry about how they're going to get there, transportation, if there's any medical needs, so there's different factors that play into it. But I know that like meals programs and stuff like that, they do have, is it Stephen Ministry, Jerry, where they'll go and visit and sit with other people? Isn't the Stephen Ministry?
I think that sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have that. We didn't have that at our parish, but if you could look that up real quick, Jerry, I just want to make sure I'm not misstating that. But so there are things in place, John. But, a lot of the community organizations have adult places, senior places for folks to go for a lunch or an activity or something of that nature. So I think sometimes the churches rely on that. What do you think, John? Has that been your experience?
Well, I think you're missing my point.
Okay.
I'm talking about as the church has gotten, especially since past Vatican II, those of us that remember Vatican II, the church just doesn't seem the same as it was, and there's a need for older people for the church now to say, well, we might have believed it this way or we might have taught it that way, but we're not doing it that way anymore. I'm talking,
Right.
And I don't.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I get it. No, I know where you were going. Okay, so John, that falls under adult faith formation, and that's exactly what but I will tell you that there are a lot of parishes that don't have the budget for adult faith formation. You have to get an adult formation person, either a deacon or a priest or a lay leader like myself, that I was an adult formation director. So yes, I totally agree. But it has to come also from the pastor. The pastor has to say, we're starting this adult formation program. We want everybody to attend in the parish from age 18 all the way up to age 100. And in the adult formation program that I led, John, for many years, I would say half of the group that came on a regular basis every Thursday evening was 70 and above. In fact, I mentioned a couple that was in my adult formation group from the beginning, and that's the Pavankas. That's Father Dave Pavanka's parents came every Thursday evening. So is that where you were going, John? And what you got to do is get back to the pastor and tell them you want this, or ask them nicely if they could add this into their ministry lineup. What do you think, John? Now do I got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, you got the right idea, and I even went to the bishop about this, and the answer he gave me, and then I guess I understand. He understood that there was no ministry specific like education things for older people, but he said, why don't you get a committee together and go to the parish and go to whoever the adult ministry or the adult formation person is, and tell them that this is what you want. And I thought, well, that's backwards. I should be able to go to the whoever and say, this is the need that I see, and I shouldn't have to be the one that does the legwork. I mean, I could help, but I don't think I should be the one that does the legwork. Go ahead.
No, please, John, finish your thought.
No, I was just saying, even though they may have, like you said, not the budget or anything, but I don't think it should be my place to make those things happen once a need is voiced.
Yeah,
I can help, but I don't think I should be the one directing it.
And that help can come exactly as you said, in the form of just simply talking to your pastor. You even went to your bishop, which shows your seriousness about trying to get something started. The saying, necessity is the mother of invention. It's sometimes unfortunate that sometimes these things fall into the laps of people like yourself, John, and others who simply see the need. They see that it's not being filled. They see that it's maybe not going to be filled, and so they just take it upon themselves to do it. But God bless you for what you do, and God bless everybody anybody else who's listening right now, if you have seen a need and you have responded, and maybe a ministry has grown out of that. Debbie, you mentioned the Stephen Ministry, and that is exactly what you said. It equips people, lay caregivers, to provide high quality, confidential, Christ-centered care to people who are hurting, and I believe that probably includes in nursing homes and assisted living facilities as well. So thank you, John, very much for the call. Great contribution to the program. Absolutely.
And sister, Christine, you called and you couldn't hang on the line. Please call back. Ryan is so bummed out that you dropped, but you might have some ministry work to do. We understand that, but if not, sister, call back. We want to make Ryan's day, and all of us want to hear your voice. So there you go.
Okay. Did you want to mention Catholic News Agency, or do you want me to?
Yes, and I do have a message that came in from Lois, our friend Lois from Stand Tall.
Right.
May I just say that real quickly? Sure. Lois just said so beautifully. She says, continued prayers for your mom, Debbie, and your family. Thank you, Lois. She said, wow, I'm going to cry. Whew. She said, a year ago this month, Chuck, that's her husband, Chuck was pulled out of bed and dragged out of bed across the floor by a woman resident. He was cut and bruised from head to toe. He was traumatized for a long time after. And she sent pictures, and it's just, I feel so bad. I feel so bad for Chuck and for Lois. And then she wrote that it was the worst day of her life, the day Chuck moved from their home.
Yeah, it's thank you, Lois, for weighing in on that, and our prayers certainly remain with you. And I just, before we go back to the calls, I just want to mention a news source that is available from EWTN. It's Catholic News Agency, and if you just put that in with a .com on the end, I am on that website right now. It is a comprehensive look at the news, not just Catholic news, but local news in your area, regional, world news, and it's done, through a Catholic lens. Let's face it, the Catholic Church is about nothing if it's not about the truth, and that means reporting on world events and news and things going on from a very objective, truthful perspective. So, folks, at least get some of your news, if not all of it, from CatholicNewsAgency.com, a service of EWTN.
Okay, going back to the phones to Christine, not sister Christine, but Christine in Cleveland, Ohio, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Christine. Welcome.
Hi, Debbie and Jerry. Thank you very much. Debbie, I think the reason I was so interested in calling is because your story really touched me, and obviously not in a great way, but so sad, and I'm so sorry that you experienced that.
Thank you.
With your mom. When I was talking with, anyway, what I wanted to share with you today was my father had been through a lot, and I was intimately involved with his care for over 20 years. He was a COPD patient, and the last 8 years of his life, he was actually on oxygen, and he was what we called a frequent flyer because of it, with a bronchitis and emphysema. He would be hospitalized a lot, so I became very familiar with everything, and near the end of his life, we decided that when he decided that he needed to go on hospice, we wanted him to come home to my house and spend the last, what they thought would be 6 to 12 months with us. So I was preparing my home over the weekend, but they didn't want him to stay in the hospital anymore, so they put him in this respite facility for the weekend so I could prepare and bring him home. Mm-hmm. Well, when he arrived there, the doctor on staff changed every single medication that he was on and threw him completely out of whack. And he was no longer able to communicate with us. He went in there completely lucid and able to talk. And then that happened. And then they kept giving him morphine because he had aphasia, and when you have COPD, you can't, when you need oxygen and you need a breathing treatment and you can't communicate that, it is, they look like they're panicked. And when he displayed that, they started giving him morphine. And I told them, no, he cannot have that because his lungs were compromised. And I fought with everyone to say no morphine, no morphine. It was on his chart. I brought my girlfriend who was a nurse with me to spend the night with him. And the nurse assured me that they would not give it to him, to go to the kitchen, go relax, eat something, while they cleaned him up and bathed him and all that. So we did. And in the morning when I was leaving, I looked at his chart. The nurse who looked me in the eye and said she would not do that, absolutely 100% administered it and signed her name right next to it.
Oh my goodness. So they did administer it while you were eating?
Yes.
Oh,
they didn't care. She looked at me and said they would not do it. I begged her. I explained the COPD, everything that was wrong with my father. I knew every medication, the dose, what he needed, when.
Sure.
And the doctor changed it. And when they did that, it threw his body out of whack, so they thought that it was okay for them to go ahead and give him, the hospice cocktail, as I've come to refer to it as. And it hastened his death. He didn't survive another week.
Oh, did he ever come home,
He never
Christine?
was able to come. No.
Oh.
We were robbed of that.
I know.
He never did.
Christine, what's your dad's first name, Christine? Because the Take Two family wants to just lift him up in prayer in your whole... That's my dad's name, Christine. I'll always remember. William. Okay. But Christine, here's the beautiful thing of it. Okay, you were there being his advocate. You were there. Okay, you did your very best. Your dad is I'm sure, so proud of you. Okay, so, the other people, they're going to have to, they'll have to deal with that themselves, what they did. But you did your very best. And your dad, William, is alive now more than ever. We have to take comfort in that. Otherwise, it's going to rip us all apart inside. And I just you said kind words when you started this call. I want to share those kind words right back at you. And I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Thank you, Debbie. You guys are wonderful. I really appreciate what you do for your listeners and sharing your stories to help us grow and learn and grow in our faith. So thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for you are the ones, you and the Take Two family, make the show with your, what beautiful takes and contributions you've made today. And in fact, we still have absolutely full phone lines and some great calls coming up. Deborah, Don, Robert, Sean, Marianne. We are simply up against about a minute or so to go until we hear the closing music here. So I think, Debbie, we ought to probably, we were going to do unscripted tomorrow, which is anything goes, but I think people still want to talk about this topic a little bit more.
Absolutely. So let's do a part 2 tomorrow.
Yeah, sure.
So if you've been on the line waiting, and Sister Christina, you email us all the time, which is wonderful. We love to hear from you. You can call back tomorrow and make sure that Ryan can hear your voice, because he really wanted to get you on the show. And Deborah from Annunciation Radio listening there, and Don from Anchorage, Alaska, and Marianne, please call back, and Ryan will put you at the front of the line. Maria just is coming in now, and others as well. And Jerry, you wanted to finish with a beautiful email.
Yeah, it's a social media comment. We had also, though, Jennifer, a traveling nurse who apparently got disconnected or couldn't stay on the line or something. So please, Jennifer, if you can call back tomorrow too, that would be great. But yeah, I wanted to mention Robert sent a comment on Facebook, and this is very important here. He says our children are watching us all the time. Even when we are not aware that they are watching, you can be assured that they are observing us. How we treat and care for our elderly will reciprocate when we ourselves are elderly. If we are a good example to our children, then they will have the moral basis to make the right choices when we need the care. I think it's an amazing and important comment by Robert.
Yes, absolutely. And finishing up for today's the first part of this discussion, like I said, I was really thrilled to be able to introduce this topic, Jerry, because I knew we were going to have active participation. But this is a tough topic. We're talking about all angles on this, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. But that's what we do here on Take Two. Okay, we have to have these conversations to help one another, to support one another, to make the right decisions, to be better Christians in the future. So thanks, folks. Please continue this conversation tomorrow. Be thinking about that. And you can always email us, take2@EWTN.com. What do you think, Jerry?
A lot of other social media comments. To Mateo, Deborah, Yoga Abba, Kristen, Kay, Anne Marie. We'll try and get to some of your comments tomorrow. And again, if you called and didn't get through on the phone today, let Ryan know tomorrow. You'll be put to the front of the line. Obviously, a conversation that is resonating with all of you. I'm Jerry Usher with Debbie Georgianni for the show team. Deb, we look forward to part 2 of this conversation tomorrow.
We do. Until then, folks, have a beautiful and blessed day. We'll see you real soon.
Dr. Ray Guarendi, make